Are you tired of feeling like the VA claim system is rigged against you? Are you fed up with denials that make no sense, or rating percentages that seem deliberately low? You are not alone. For years, the Department of Veterans Affairs has operated behind a veil of complex regulations, using language and procedures that are specifically designed to confuse the average veteran. This isn't a conspiracy theory. It's bureaucracy, and it costs veterans billions in benefits they rightfully earned. We are talking about the hidden truths, the procedural shortcuts, and the documentation secrets that only the claims processors, the high-level VSOs, and the legal teams actually understand. They won't volunteer this information because, frankly, keeping the process slow and complex saves the government money. But today, we are pulling back the curtain. We are diving deep into the 10 most powerful, most overlooked tricks that can fundamentally change the trajectory of your claim, turning a denial into a win and a low rating into the compensation you deserve. If you've been fighting for years, or if you're just starting your claim journey, this is the blueprint you need to stop guessing and start winning. Stick around, because the difference between 30% and 100% often comes down to mastering these 10 insider secrets. Let's start with the absolute foundation, the key piece of evidence that makes or breaks more claims than any other: the nexus letter. Now, you've probably heard you need a doctor's opinion connecting your current condition to your military service, but here's the trick the insiders know. It's not just what the doctor says, it's how they say it, and more importantly, it's who says it. Most veterans submit a generic letter from their primary care physician, a doctor who means well but likely doesn't understand the specific legal requirements of the VA. The VA doesn't just want an opinion, they want legal certainty expressed in medical terms. The insider secret here is twofold. First, the magic phrasing. Your doctor must state that your condition is at least as likely as not due to your service, or more likely than not. Any weaker language, like possibly related, or could be due to, and the VA will immediately discard the letter as speculative. They look for that specific legal threshold. If your letter doesn't contain that specific phrasing, it's nearly worthless in the eyes of the claims adjudicator. It's the difference between a claim that moves forward instantly and one that gets kicked back for a C&P exam where the VA doctor is already predisposed to deny the connection. But the second, deeper secret about the nexus letter is a type of physician. The VA often dismisses letters from general practitioners, especially if the condition is complex. Think mental health, neurology, or orthopedics requiring surgical intervention. The insider trick is to seek out a specialist who is not only familiar with your condition but, critically, is familiar with the VA claims process itself. These are often forensic medical experts or doctors who specifically handle VA evaluations. Why? Because they know how to properly cite the necessary medical journals, reference the specific diagnostic codes, and most importantly, review your entire service treatment record, or STR, linking specific events, the trauma, the injury, the exposure, directly to the current diagnosis. A specialist who provides a 20-page, well-researched nexus letter that meticulously details the medical rationale for the connection is exponentially more powerful than a one-page note from a primary care doctor. The VA claims processors are trained to look for deficiencies, and a weak nexus letter is the easiest deficiency to spot. By investing in a high-quality specialized nexus letter, you are effectively preempting the VA's ability to deny the claim based on insufficient evidence. You are giving them a document so thorough, so medically sound, that denying it would require the VA examiner to commit professional malpractice or openly contradict established medical science, which significantly raises the stakes for the VA. This level of preparation is what separates the successful claims from the endless appeal cycles. Moving on, let's talk about a strategy that turns one successful claim into 2, 3, or even 4 successful claims, the secret of secondary service connection. This is pure gold, and it's overlooked by countless veterans focused only on their primary injuries. The VA doesn't just compensate you for the injury you sustained in the service, they must also compensate you for any subsequent condition that is caused or aggravated by that service-connected injury. This is the domino effect, and it's how many veterans reach the higher rating tiers. For example, let's say you are service-connected for a severe knee injury. You receive a rating for the orthopedic damage. But because of that knee injury, you start walking differently, favoring one side, leading to chronic hip pain, lower back issues, and eventually diagnosed sciatica. The hip pain and sciatica are not directly caused by military service, but they are caused by the service-connected knee injury. The insider trick is realizing you can claim these secondary conditions and have them service-connected just as easily as the primary one, often without needing an entirely new incident in your STR. The crucial detail here, the one the VA doesn't highlight, is documentation showing the chronological link. You need medical evidence demonstrating that Condition B, the secondary issue, began or worsened after Condition A, the primary service-connected issue, was diagnosed. The claims processor is looking for that clear medical bridge. If you have chronic headaches, Condition B, that started after you were prescribed heavy pain medication for your service-connected back injury, Condition A, you must connect the dots. You need a doctor to explicitly state that the medication regimen, the altered gait, the sleep disturbance, or the psychological stress resulting from Condition A is the direct etiology or cause of Condition B. Veterans often try to claim all their conditions separately, making the burden of proof much higher. By strategically linking conditions as secondary, you leverage the existing service connection, turning a complex fight into a simple medical progression. Think about mental health conditions. Severe chronic pain often leads to depression, anxiety, or insomnia. If your pain is service-connected, the resulting mental health condition is a powerful secondary claim. This trick is the key to maximizing your overall combined rating, often pushing veterans past the 70% threshold and into the highest compensation brackets, simply by accurately identifying the cascading medical consequences of their original injury. Now, let's pivot to the human element of your claim, the evidence that bypasses the cold medical records and speaks directly to the reality of your suffering. The SHAO? Power of the buddy statement, done right. Most veterans know they can submit statements from friends or family, but the insider trick is understanding that the VA treats these statements less as emotional support and more as specialized lay evidence, particularly when official military documentation is missing. If your injury wasn't well documented in your STR, a common issue for things like non-combat injuries, mental health struggles, or exposure incidents, the buddy statement becomes your primary source of proof of the in-service event TAS itself. The secret to a high-impact buddy statement is specificity, not sentimentality. A bad buddy statement says, John was always in pain. A powerful, winning buddy statement says, I was with John in Fallujah in March 2005 when the IED detonated near our vehicle. I saw him hit his head and lose consciousness for about 30 seconds. He immediately started complaining of headaches and ringing in his ears, which he never had before, and I witnessed him taking ibuprofen daily for the rest of the deployment. I can attest that his symptoms started on that specific date. Notice the difference? The VA requires 3 things for service connection: a current diagnosis, an in-service event, and the medical nexus. If your STR is silent on the in-service event, the buddy statement must fill that gap with precise, verifiable details. Dates, locations, specific symptoms observed immediately after the event, and how the condition impacted the veteran during their service. Furthermore, the insider trick extends to who writes the statement. Statements from fellow service members who were present during the incident are the most powerful. Statements from spouses or family members are critical for documenting the severity and duration of symptoms after service, particularly for mental health or chronic pain claims. They can attest to the IKE functional impairment, the inability to maintain employment, the isolation, the mood swings. The VA claims processor is trained to look for consistency between multiple statements, so having 2 or 3 highly detailed, coordinated statements that corroborate the same specific facts about the in-service event or the post-service impairment is a massive advantage. Don't let your buddies write a vague note. Give them specific prompts and focus their testimony on the facts the VA needs to see. This next trick is pure financial leverage, a bureaucratic maneuver that can instantly put thousands of dollars back in your pocket. Effective date. Manipulation and maximizing back pay. When a claim is approved, the VA assigns an effective date, which is the date from which your compensation payments begin. For most veterans, this is simply the date the VA received the claim. But the insider secret is knowing the exceptions to this rule, which can push your effective date back months or even years, resulting in a massive lump sum payment. The first exception is the intent to file. Stjärnby. We'll cover that more deeply in a moment, but if you filed an intent to file, your effective date can be up to 1 year before the formal application. That's standard knowledge. The real trick, however, lies in chuk q shambam, or clear and unmistakable error, and stale claims. Shami. If you were previously denied for a condition and you are now filing again with new evidence, the VA typically treats the new filing date as the effective date. But if the VA made a procedural or factual error in their original denial, a Q, you can challenge that original decision and potentially move the effective date back to the date of the original claim, regardless of how long ago it was. This is incredibly difficult and usually requires legal intervention, but the payoff can be enormous. The simpler, more common insider trick relates to when the VA received evidence. If you submitted a claim and the VA sat on it for months or years, or if you submitted a formal diagnosis. Before the claim was fully processed, the effective date should be the date the VA received the evidence showing service connection, not necessarily the date the final decision was made. The insider move is to meticulously track every piece of evidence submission and cross-reference it with the VA's own internal rules regarding when a claim is considered substantially complete. If you can prove that the VA had sufficient evidence to grant the claim at an earlier date, you can argue for an earlier effective date. This is often done by referencing the specific regulation, 38 CFR 3-400, and pointing out the exact moment the evidence threshold was met. This level of detail is what the adjudicators don't want you to know because it forces them to review their own processing timeline, which is often riddled with delays that work against the veteran. Always assume your effective date should be earlier and actively fight for it by referencing the earliest possible date you provided the necessary 3 elements: diagnosis, event, and nexus. Let's talk about the most terrifying part of the process for many veterans, the moment where the VA holds all the cards. The C&P exam trap, the unspoken rules of examiner interaction. The compensation and pension exam is designed to be the VA's final evidence-gathering tool, but insiders know it's often a procedural hurdle where the VA seeks to minimize or disprove your claims. The trick isn't about lying or exaggerating, it's about strategic, factual communication that prevents the examiner from misleadingly minimizing your symptoms. The VA examiner is not your treating physician. They are conducting a medical opinion for the VA's benefit. The first unspoken rule is the worst day rule. When the examiner asks about your pain or symptoms, veterans often default to describing an average day or worse, a day where they feel slightly better. This is a catastrophic mistake. The VA rating schedule is designed to compensate for the maximum level of functional impairment. You must describe your symptoms on your worst day, or at least the most representative, severe symptoms you experience. For example, if you have migraines, don't say you get them a couple times a month. Say, on a severe day, I experience prostrating pain that requires me to lie down in a dark room for 12 hours, and I am completely unable to function. This happens multiple times a month. The examiner is required to document the severity of your functional impairment. If you minimize it, your rating will be minimized. The second part of the trap is the PO, function versus feeling. Distinction. Examiners often ask vague questions about how you feel. Insiders know you must pivot every answer back to how your condition limits your ability to work, socialize, or perform daily living activities. For example, if you have limited range of motion in your shoulder, don't just say, "It hurts when I lift things." Say, "I cannot lift my arm above shoulder height, which means I cannot perform the overhead tasks required by my previous job as a mechanic, and I struggle to put away groceries." The rating schedule is based on quantifiable functional loss, not subjective pain. By translating your pain into functional limitation, you give the examiner the exact data points required to justify a higher rating under the specific diagnostic codes. The third trick is the refusal to speculate. Examiners may try to push you into confirming alternative causes for your condition. They might ask, "Could this knee pain be due to your running marathon after you left the service?" You must firmly but politely refuse to speculate. Your answer should be, "I am only here to discuss the symptoms and limitations I experienced today. I rely on the medical evidence and my physician's opinion regarding the connection to my military service." Do not give them an opening to create an alternative etiology. Finally, always bring a detailed written summary of your symptoms and functional limitations to the C&P exam. This ensures you cover all the crucial points, even if the examiner tries to rush the appointment. This documentation serves as a powerful reminder, and if the examiner fails to document a critical symptom, you can use your prepared statement as evidence in a subsequent appeal, arguing that the examiner failed their duty to fully examine the claim. Let's shift our focus to Yanqi, presumptive conditions versus direct service connection, knowing which route is easier. This is a trick that saves veterans years of fighting for a nexus letter. Most claims require the veteran to prove the in-service event and the medical nexus. This is the direct service connection route. However, the VA recognizes that certain conditions are so commonly associated with specific service areas or exposures that they are presumed to be service-connected, provided you meet specific criteria. This is the presumptive route, and it is the ultimate shortcut. The insider knowledge here is aggressively checking and rechecking the list of presumptive conditions, especially those related to Agent Orange, Gulf War service, and specific environmental exposures like Camp Lejeune water contamination or burn pits. The trick is that the list of presumptive conditions is constantly expanding, often due to new legislation like the PACT Act. Many veterans file a direct claim for a condition that is now presumptive, unnecessarily subjecting themselves to the nexus letter requirement. If your condition is on the presumptive list and you served in the qualifying area during the qualifying time frame, you only need to prove two things: your service location, your dates, and your current diagnosis. The VA, you must grant the nexus automatically. The deeper trick involves understanding the nuances of the PACT Act. For example, the Act expanded the list of presumptive cancers and respiratory illnesses related to toxic exposure. If you served in the Middle East after 1990, many cancers are now presumptive. Insiders know to frame the claim immediately as a presumptive claim, citing the specific qualifying regulation, E 38 CFR 3.320. rather than filing a standard claim. If the VA denies a presumptive claim, the burden of proof is much higher on the VA to show that the condition was not related to service. If you file a direct claim, the burden is entirely on you to prove the connection. Always choose the presumptive route if you qualify. It is the path of least resistance and highest success rate. Veterans who fail to update their claims based on new presumptive legislation are leaving money and time on the table, fighting battles they no longer need to fight. This next point is the simplest administrative trick, yet it prevents thousands of dollars in lost back pay every single day. Filing intent to file, the instant money saver. An intent to file, or ITF, is a formal notice to the VA that you plan to file a claim soon. It requires almost no effort. You can submit it online in minutes, but the impact is massive. The insider secret is that the ITF locks in your effective date for up to 1 year. If you submit an ITF today, and it takes you 11 months to gather all your medical records, nexus letters, and buddy statements and submit the formal claim, your effective date for compensation will be today's date, not the date 11 months from now. Why do veterans miss this? Because they feel they need to have all their ducks in a row before starting the process. The VA doesn't aggressively advertise the ITF mechanism, and many veterans only learn about it after they've already started the formal claim, thereby losing months of potential back pay. The trick is to file the ITF the moment you decide you are going to pursue a claim, even if you are only vaguely considering it. It costs you nothing, takes minutes, and buys you a full year of protected time to build a bulletproof case. If you wait until you have all your documents, you are potentially forfeiting 12 months of compensation. For a veteran receiving $3,000 a month, that's $36,000 lost. The ITF is the administrative equivalent of hitting the pause button on the clock, ensuring that every day you spend gathering evidence is a day you are still owed compensation for. Insiders view the ITF as the absolute first step in any claim process, regardless of readiness. Now we must tackle one of the most confusing and frustrating elements of the VA compensation system: the VA math deception. Understanding the combined rating table. Veterans often get angry when they receive multiple low ratings and realize they don't simply add up. A 30% rating plus a 20% rating does not equal 50%. This is the VA math that feels like a trick, but it is actually a specific calculation designed to measure disability based on the remaining functional capacity. The insider trick is not just understanding the table, but strategically filing claims to maximize the jump points. The VA uses a combined rating table where subsequent disabilities are applied to the remaining functional capacity. If you have a 30% disability, you are 70% functional. If you then receive a 20% rating for a second condition, that 20% is applied to the remaining 70% functionality. 20% of 70% is 14%. You add the 14% to the original 30%, giving you 44%, which rounds down to a 40% combined rating. This system is designed to make it increasingly difficult to reach the higher ratings, especially 100%. The real insider move is understanding the strategic importance of the high jump points. The biggest jump in benefits and access to ancillary programs like CHAMP VEA, education benefits for dependents, etc., occurs when you hit 70%, 90%, and 100%. Insiders know that rather than focusing on a dozen minor conditions, it is far more effective to focus resources on proving 1 or 2 conditions that, by themselves, can hit 50% or 70%. For instance, a single mental health condition, like PTSD, rated at 70% immediately puts you into a high bracket, and subsequent ratings are applied to the remaining 30% functionality. If you have a 10% rating and a 20% rating, you are only at 28%, which rounds to 30%. If you swap that 20% rating for a 50% rating, you jump immediately to 65%, which rounds up to 70%. The claims processor is looking at the percentage, but the veteran must look at the functional impact mahon, required by the rating schedule, 38 CFR, Part 4, to ensure their evidence aligns with the highest possible rating for that specific condition. If your mental health symptoms meet the criteria for 70%, but you only claim 50%, you are leaving money on the table. The trick is knowing the exact wording in the rating schedule for each percentage level and ensuring your medical records and C&P testimony reflect the highest level of impairment possible. Let's move to one of the most life-changing claims a veteran can pursue. The Secret to Total Disability Individual Unemployability, TDIU, claims. TDIU is a program that allows veterans who are rated below 100%, usually 70% or higher, or a combination totaling 70% with one condition at 40%, to be paid at the 100% rate if their service-connected disabilities prevent them from maintaining substantially gainful employment. This is often the path to 100% compensation for veterans who are stuck in the 70% to 90% range. The insider secret here is that the claim is not primarily medical. It is vocational and economic. The VA is not looking for proof that you can't work. They are looking for proof that you cannot maintain substantially gainful employment due to your service-connected conditions. This means the focus must shift entirely to the job market and your history. The key is the Form 21894JOS, the application for increased compensation based on unemployability. Veterans often fail this claim by focusing too much on their pain and not enough on their work history. The winning TDIU trick involves two critical components. First, you must prove that your inability to work is solely due to your service-connected conditions. If you have a non-service-connected condition, like a non-military car accident injury, that also prevents you from working, the VA may deny the TDIU. You must have medical evidence clearly stating that the service-connected conditions are the primary barrier. Second, and most importantly, you must detail your attempts to work and why those attempts failed. The VA is looking for a pattern of unstable, short-term employment or a complete inability to find work that accommodates your limitations. If you claim TDIU, but you haven't worked in 10 years, the VA will want to know why you haven't worked, and you must link that unemployment directly to your service-connected conditions. The final and perhaps most crucial part of the TDIU trick is understanding the substantially gainful employment threshold. This is generally defined as income above the federal poverty line. If you are working part-time and earning below that threshold, you can still qualify for TDIU. Insiders know to gather detailed statements from former employers explaining why you couldn't keep the job, excessive absences, inability to perform physical tasks, or conflicts due to psychiatric symptoms. These employer statements, coupled with a vocational expert's opinion if possible, transform a weak TDIU claim into an undeniable one. You are proving not just disability, but unemployability in the competitive labor market due to the injuries you sustained serving your country. Finally, let's discuss the evidence that veterans have complete control over, yet often fail to utilize effectively. The importance of lay evidence, the veteran's own narrative. Lay evidence is simply testimony from non-medical professionals, which includes your buddy statements, but most critically, your own statement, often submitted on VA Form 214138. The insider trick is leveraging this narrative not just as a statement of symptoms, but as a bridge of continuity. The VA often denies claims because of a gap in medical evidence, particularly between the time you left service and the time you sought treatment many years later. This is the continuity gap. If you were injured in 1985 but didn't seek formal treatment until 2010, the VA will argue the condition started after service. Your lay statement is the tool to close that gap. You must meticulously detail the persistent, continuous nature of your symptoms during that missing time frame. For example, although I did not see a doctor between 1985 and 2010 for my back pain, I had constant daily pain. I used over-the-counter medication daily. I couldn't sit for more than an hour, and my wife can attest that I slept on the couch most nights because the bed aggravated my condition. The power of lay evidence is that the VA is legally required to consider of veterans credible testimony regarding the onset and continuity of symptoms, especially when it aligns with medical principles. The trick is ensuring your statement is detailed, chronological, and focuses on the functional impact. Don't write a general letter of complaint. Write a detailed chronology of pain, limitation, and functional impairment, directly referencing specific events in your life. E-g, I quit coaching my son's soccer team in 1998 because I couldn't run anymore due to my knee. This transforms your statement from a subjective complaint into objective evidence of functional loss over time. The claims processors are looking for evidence that the condition has been present and impacting your life since service, even if you couldn't afford or didn't seek formal treatment. Your narrative, when detailed and consistent, is the most powerful piece of evidence you possess to connect the past to the present. So, where does this leave you? You now have the 10 insider secrets used by the most successful claims agents and legal teams. We have covered the necessity of the specialized nexus letter using the "at least as likely as not" phrasing, and how to use secondary service connection to create a cascade of compensable conditions. We discussed how to weaponize the buddy statement with specific verifiable facts and the simple administrative genius of the intent to file to save you a year of back pay. You now understand the strategic importance of the C&P exam, focusing on your worst day and functional limitations, not just subjective pain. You know to check for new presumptive conditions before filing a direct claim, and how to navigate the pitfalls of VA math by targeting the critical percentage thresholds. Finally, we detailed the economic focus required for a successful TDIU claim and the essential role of your own lay evidence in bridging the continuity gaps in your medical history. The VA system is complex by design, but complexity does not mean impossibility. It means preparation. It means treating your claim not as a favor you are asking for, but as a legal case you are building. Stop submitting generic forms and hoping for the best. Start applying these insider tricks immediately. Go file that intent to file right now. Review your service-connected conditions and look for secondary claims you missed. Prepare a detailed factual statement for your next C&P exam. The difference between a lifetime of financial struggle and the stability you deserve is often just a matter of knowing these 10 secrets and executing them flawlessly. Don't wait for the VA to tell you the rules. Use the rules they hide to secure the benefits you earned.